So the new JBL Clip 4 is actually a very capable ultra portable Bluetooth speaker that sounds significantly better than its predecessor, and it's been upgraded to USB-C charging. And when compared to the rest of the competition, the Clip 4 fares pretty well. Now, if you're someone that's looking into getting an ultra portable Bluetooth speaker, either to use while you're out walking the dog, out on a hike, or while riding on your bike, today I'm going to be comparing the Clip 4 to the Bose Soundlink Micro and the Sony XB12. Now, when it comes to pricing, it is a little all over the place. The Sony XB12 has a retail price of $60, whereas the JBL Clip 4 has a retail price of $70. And then there's the Bose Soundlink Micro, which has a retail price of $100, and personally, I do feel that is a little steep. Now, if you're someone that's looking for a small Bluetooth speaker for their bedroom, you are better off going with something like either the JBL Flip 5 or the Sony XB23, because these sound significantly better and they get louder because these are 20-watt speakers, whereas these other speakers are like 5 watts and below. These ultra portable Bluetooth speakers are really for that niche customer that's looking for something that they can easily attach to their backpack or onto their bike's handlebar. Nonetheless, if you're going to pick any of these speakers up, they'll be linked down below. Now, first off, let's talk about the designs of these speakers. Now, all of these speakers are tiny and they all have durability in mind. Now, they're all waterproof, so you don't got to worry about them getting wet, and they're all rugged, so you don't got to worry about them getting scratched or roughed up. But objectively, I do got to say that the Sony does have the least durable feeling body here because this is all soft touch on the outside. Whereas the JBL has a mostly fabric body with a metal outline, so it does feel more durable than the Sony. But then there's the Bose, which has a fully rubber body, which not only feels super premium, it also feels more durable. Now, feel aside, I think one of the major differentiating factors between these three speakers design-wise is just their ability to attach themselves to stuff. Now, even though the JBL Clip 4 does have a new and improved carabiner from its predecessor, which is significantly wider, so you should have an easier time clipping this speaker onto stuff, I do feel it's the most limited here. Whereas the Bose Soundlink Micro has this rubber strap on the back, so you can easily attach it either to your backpack shoulder strap or to your bike's handlebar. The only thing to keep in mind here is that this elastic strap isn't super elastic. And then there's the Sony, which just has this simple nylon loop, so you can easily just hang the speaker either on a tree branch or on a fence. And if you need to, you can always unbutton this nylon strap so you can directly attach the speaker onto either your backpack or your bike's handlebar. The only thing to keep in mind here is, hold on, give me a second, this thing is always a little hard to get fixed. Okay. The only thing to keep in mind here is that if you do attach the speaker onto something, like let's say your backpack, then the speaker is going to be swinging back and forth, which could be a little annoying for some people. But now let's talk about tech specs. Since the Clip 4 is the newest speaker here, thankfully it charges via a USB-C port, whereas since these other two speakers are a little older, they still charge via a micro USB port, which I do feel is somewhat of an inconvenience now in 2021. Now, when it comes to battery life, it is a little all over the place. Now, the Sony XB12 has the longest advertised battery life here of 16 hours, but it's a 3.5 watt speaker, meaning that it's just not going to get as loud or have as much bass as, let's say, the JBL Clip 4, which is a 5 watt speaker, and this speaker has an advertised battery life of 10 hours, which I do think is pretty decent. Now, the Bose Soundlink Micro gets just as loud as the Clip 4, and it also has just as much bass, but this speaker only has an advertised battery life of 6 hours, which I feel is just way too little, especially for a speaker that you'll probably be mainly taking into the woods with you. So for that reason, I'm gonna have to give it to the Clip 4 when it comes to battery life. With the Clip 4, you're getting good sound and decent battery life. But if you do need something with the longest battery life here, then you could go with the Sony, but you are going to have to sacrifice on sound quality. And you're going to see that when we get to the sound test. Now, when it comes to connectivity, all of these speakers have solid Bluetooth connections and they all have zero latency across the board when watching movies or videos on your phone, which is good for podcasts. However, only the Bose can be connected to two devices at the same time, whereas the Sony and JBL can only be connected to one device at a time. And only the Sonys have an audio jack, whereas these other two speakers don't. Now personally, I don't mind not having an audio jack on a speaker of this size, but I do think that is something important to keep in mind depending on your setup. But now let's talk about listening to music with these speakers. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the Sony is a 3.5 watt speaker, so this speaker isn't going to get as loud or have as much bass as these other two speakers, because in this sound test, the Sony is playing at max volume, whereas these other two speakers are playing at 90% volume.
It's almost nighttime, waiting for the right time. Gotta get this right, I'm scared to death. Scared of your eyes, looking into my eyes. Scared that I'll back down and hold my breath. Wake up one morning and see your face, I can feel it coming back. These shivers are every day. Whoa, I say it's over, I get out of bed and leave, yeah. Just like that, I got the shivers. Whenever I would think about you, now that I left, I live without you. I'm on my own again. I got the shivers. Whenever you ain't out of line, yeah. Now it's like everything is fine, yeah. 'Cause now I'm alone again.
So like you may have just heard, all three of these speakers sound very different from one another. Now the Sony sounds very narrow and nasally when compared to these other two speakers. Now the Bose Soundlink Micro has a very impressive amount of bass for its size, but it does sound rather shallow because the mids are rather recessed. But then there's the Clip 4, which I do feel is the best sounding speaker here. Now just like the Bose Soundlink Micro, the Clip 4 has an impressive amount of bass for its size, but unlike the Bose, it does have a slight emphasis on the mids and highs, which I think is a good thing for a speaker like this that you'll mainly be using outdoors, because then that way its sound is going to be able to travel out a little farther. But when it comes to max volume, I gotta say the Bose and JBL are evenly matched, whereas the Sony is trailing behind here a little bit. But finally, let's talk about pairing these speakers up to other speakers. Now, unfortunately, the Clip 4 doesn't have JBL Party Boost, so you can't wirelessly pair it up to any other JBL Party Boost speakers, like either a JBL Boombox 2, an Extreme 3, JBL Flip 5, or a JBL Pulse 4. And personally, I do feel this is unfortunate because I was really hoping the Clip 4 would finally get Party Boost. Then there's the Sony XB12, which you can wirelessly sync up to one other XB12 and get left and right stereo sound going. But you can't wirelessly pair this speaker up to any of Sony's larger speakers, like either an XB43, XB33, or an XB23. But then there's the Bose Soundlink Micro, which you can pair up with other Bose Soundlink speakers. So you can either pair it up to another Bose Soundlink Micro, or a Bose Soundlink Color, or a Bose Soundlink Revolve. But you can't pair the Bose Soundlink Micro to any of Bose's newer products, like any of their smart soundbars, or smart portable home speakers, or Bose NC700 headphones. So with all that being said, if you're looking for an ultra portable Bluetooth speaker to use either while you're out walking the dog or out on a hike, or if you want to attach it to your bike, then I do feel the Clip 4 is going to give you the most complete package here. It sounds good, it has decent battery life, and it charges via a USB-C port. The only drawback to look out for here is that its carabiner can be a little limited. It doesn't have an audio jack, and you can't pair it up to any of JBL's other speakers. But I do think the Clip 4 is a better value than the Bose Soundlink Micro, because to me, I feel a 6-hour battery life just isn't going to cut it. Now, even though the Sony XB12 does have an advertised battery life of 16 hours, just keep in mind, you're really gonna have to sacrifice when it comes to sound quality. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. If you want to pick any of the products up mentioned in this video, those will be linked in the description down below, and you can also support the channel by checking out the merch store. But other than that, I'll catch you next time.